Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Ron Bowers and Henry House. The Flip Side starts right now. Welcome to the show. A new trade pact with Canada and Mexico that has been around, I guess, for a year or so now, and in Congress, and kind of held up literally on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I know that the Democrats put some additional touches in it, but it's set and likely for approval by Congress in 2020. Ron, is this trade pact far different from NAFTA, or is it just an updated version?
I think there was widespread desire to change the NAFTA agreement for years. I think the president ran on a platform of changing it to come out, with a U.S., Mexico, and Canada agreement. He had a proposal. I would say that that proposal did not set on a desk. They've been negotiating that proposal for well over a year and a half, almost 2 years of the different issues that dealt with car companies specifically in Mexico, how they wanted to make sure that Mexico kept up and paid their people a better wage than what they were. And I think over that 2-year period, because I know from on the other
almost
side,
3 years.
Yeah, from on the other side of the aisle, there's people from the Republican Party said, wait a minute, why'd you talk to her so much, and why was there so much leniency or leading towards what her and her party wanted? So it was one of those things. It was as it should be in Washington. They ironed an agreement out with everybody, and I think the victor will be the American people and the economy.
So there's pieces in here that are good for manufacturing. There are pieces in here that are good for agriculture. Are there losers in this trade pact, Ron?
I'm sure once you get in, first of all, it's not even passed yet.
Well, I understand that, but
that's like the president said, that it was there and ready to go, and it wasn't. It had to be negotiated by the Congress, and I think it still has to be approved by the Senate.
It does. Mm-hmm.
So,
which is going to happen in January.
Yeah, well, which is going to at least go to McConnell's desk, when it's ratified, because there's all kind of bills sitting on his desk, as you said was sitting on Pelosi's desk. There's a heck of a lot of legislation sitting on McConnell's desk.
Okay. So what are the differences that we know about, Henry, from a trade deal perspective?
Well, one is it's going to guarantee that $16 plus an hour is going to be earned by the workers in Canada and the U.S. in auto manufacturing. Mexico doesn't have that same burden. But Trump, when he started the negotiation, or his team when they started the negotiation, did address some of the concerns about having ready access to labor unions and helping facilitate those organizations. One of the things Nancy Pelosi team wanted was a little bit stronger enforcement of, well, what if they are preventing labor from organizing in Mexico. So they had that added in. They have, instead of having one arbiter, they have a sort of a arbiter agreed to from Mexico, one agreed to from the U.S., and then one mutually agreed to if they had any differences. And that's just if the U.S. and Mexico, it's the same thing if we had a trade dispute with Canada.
And that's why Trump go with the AFL-CIO
exactly
bought in on it.
Yeah, they were able to work across the aisles, which is a novelty in the current state of affairs in D.C., or at least over the last 16, 20 years. So they're able to come to bipartisan. Jim, you mentioned about winners, losers. The drug companies are probably one of the biggest losers out of this.
How so?
Because their patents normally run a 10-year before generics can start to appear on the market. Mexico and Canada doesn't have that requirement now. Okay. So they can introduce lower cost generic drugs into the system, and the drug companies are saying that's going to hamper their investment or their desire for investment in drugs to solve things because they're going to introduce these things and then they're not going to have the ability to redeem or recoup their investment in the studies of it. The winners, American dairy farmers, in particular with Canada, that's been a blockaded market, very difficult for them to gain access into. American dairy farmers are going to have better access now, so that's a positive thing. Of course, we sit and we look at the dairy co-ops across the country. One of the major ones, Dean Foods, is under bankruptcy right now because of the way the industry actually is for the dairy farmers. But that's a win for the farmers. It's a win for the corn farmers because now. They were talking about shopping across the globe to try to find corn for, Mexico or Canada. Now they have something to look forward to. The grain belt of the U.S. is going to be able to, export their goods down there.
So now you got a problem there with the soybean farmers. The soybean farmers with the trade agreements with what we've done on the tariffs. And what we're putting in, some $16 billion subsidy a year to the farmer that's raising soybeans, that's going to be an issue. I guess one of the questions I have, how will this deal with the minimum wage in the country? Do you think this is going to have anything to do with, we're not keeping up with what we expect Mexico to do?
What I was really disappointed with is that the agreement did not instill the same requirements for manufacture. Like we have our EPA, Canada obviously has, they're equivalent to our EPA, and Mexico has something. It's not a level playing field. So the investment that needs to be made to keep the environment healthy is not going to be the same.
But doesn't the car manufacturer have that requirement on how it's built? And how
but
it has to come back?
not if it goes down to Mexico. There's not the same burdens. They're going to have to meet the state burdens for Mexico or the U.S. But you're talking about wages.
Yeah.
And minimum wage, this is still above where minimum wage is. So anyone who's getting a job, Mexico's not being forced to be on a competitive wage scale as what the U.S. and Canada workers are.
One of the sticking points was in the negotiation, which was what the wage scale was going to be in Mexico, and that's why the head of the AFL-CIO bought into it.
And there's a certain percentage, when we're talking about manufactured automobiles, there's a certain percentage of goods that have to be from Canada and the U.S. in order to meet that burden of requirement.
They have to be imported by Mexico.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win situation in a lot of different areas.
I think both sides are going to try to take victory laps, but like you said, the winners really should be the American people and the American worker.
There's enough credit to go around, so it really doesn't matter who gets credit for it, because it is something. I think NAFTA had outgrown itself.
Well, and I think that was the original question that I asked you, is the fact that there are some protections in there around what we're terming the digital era. Well, the digital era did not exist 25 years ago when NAFTA was executed. So there are a lot of things that really are important that were not being addressed by NAFTA. Our world has changed significantly in 25 years ago. You used to have hair 25 years ago, right?
I've always been follically impaired.
Okay. But I think, from my perspective, and I only did a quick read of the summary, I didn't read the whole bill, but it sounds to me like the biggest loser here is whoever can't claim the credit for it on the Democratic or Republican side. And like you, Ron, I think there's plenty of credit to go around. I think that President Trump was a key element in pushing this thing forward, and I think some of the things that the Democrats added to it in the back room.
I'd give Nancy Pelosi some accolades too. She fought for what she thought was right. She helped keep it together, and it came out. It didn't sit on her desk.
It didn't sit on her desk.
I would be curious, the language that we are now seeing, when was that decided upon?
Yeah, it did sit on her desk, and there's very few people that would argue that it.
If you look at what Senator Cornyn said and what a couple other people said, they accused Lighthizer of acquiescing to her. So I guess it's all in how you read and interpret things, and I interpret it a little bit different than what you do.
Let's talk about timing. I don't think it's any coincidence that this trade deal was approved in Congress literally hours after the impeachment articles were handed out. Ron, what do you say about that?
I guess it's almost like the Hollywood tapes that came out, and the next day out came the emails from on Hillary Clinton. So it's all, I think we look at these things all in different ways, and at the end of the day, you take one story to take another, which happens all the time in Washington. Something good happens. I didn't see anything coming from the administration.
But wouldn't this have been something
I
good?
didn't see anything coming from the administration today, even talking about the agreement being passed. It was arguing about something else. So I think we should be taking a couple of laps for the betterment of the country. This is too much politics is getting involved in it.
Well, maybe the administration thinks that there's more fish to fry now that this one is kind of a foregone conclusion. Maybe they feel like they should get on to the next thing.
If you
and
like
not take too
fish.
many victory laps over the victory already won.
But back to you, Henry. I understand what you
See, he doesn't want to respond.
No,
I'm just
I
saying
understand.
what Henry was saying.
But really, the bottom line is Nancy Pelosi had to knock some dust off of this because I think the language has already been approved. But they want to sort of slide this in sort of as a bone to appease some of the more moderates in the party, along with, we're going to do articles of impeachment. So we're trying to not have the entire news line because impeachment is a loser. I think, Ron, you probably realize that it's not going to go anywhere save be another nightmare for this country to deal with for the next, couple months.
I think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not even going to respond to your comment.
That's fair.
Is it fair to say, and Henry mentioned about the insurance companies being a big loser in this potentially?
Oh, drug
companies. Yeah, because of the loss of protection. But is it also fair to say that, and I'm not sure that it should, but is it fair to say that this bill does, or this agreement does nothing to help reduce cost for American consumers of pharmaceuticals?
We've got the same problem all along, where we're still not doing anything.
The FDA is going to approve what drugs they're going to allow into the country. Okay, they don't approve the price structure, but medicine developed, if it's being, remanufactured in Mexico at a cheaper price and being marketed under a generic name, is the FDA going to approve that drug to come in?
Well, who's holding it back? The pharmaceutical lobby that's got the
right,
the control of the Congress in their hip pocket.
So if we're taking away their research dollars because they can't charge that premium until they lose the patent on it, if we're taking away their research dollars so that they can recoup that investment, because getting a drug to use is very billion-dollar level expense.
Research and development's a loser.
Yeah.
Research and development spends billions of dollars,
right,
and then finally they hit something and then they make money. Because people say, why don't you get research companies here? Well, research companies don't make money. Yeah. Somebody's got to have the deep pockets to fund the research.
Well, they say that a pill costs 2 cents to make. Well, that's the second pill. The first one cost 200 million or whatever.
So what do you do after there's been 200 million pills sold?
Well, then
it's time for it to come down, but it doesn't.
If you have some nepotism that got you a good seat somewhere, you raise that price up so people
like West
can't afford it.
Like in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, from my perspective, this is overall a good thing, but there are going to be winners and losers, and that's just a fact.
Is there anything that's done in life that there's not a winner and a loser?
Well, no, I don't think there is, Ron. Do you?
I'm talking in the business world. When there's a decision made,
there's winners and losers.
There's winners and losers.
I'll give you the last word on that. Coming up next, Maryland has a political online ad legislation that the court system says has gone too far. We'll have more on that after the break. Stay with us. A Maryland law aimed at moving political online ads into the bucket of campaign finance has gone too far, says a federal appeals court. Henry, what say you?
Well, the one thing is, when they're buying online ads, and I think Washington Post was one of the people who filed suit and challenged us under, the First Amendment rights. AP actually filed supporting documentation on it because they're taking the gray money of the campaign. If Ron was running for county commissioner right now and Ron bought an ad, Ron would have to report that on his federal election form. But the gray money that's coming in from buddies of Ron Bowers, okay, could freely put ad campaigns and smear campaigns against all the other candidates out there and have no accountability. So I understand the premise behind it, but they don't have, it could just be a one party or one individual that's doing that money and it's not associated with you, Ron. You have nothing to do with that.
At least I say I don't.
Exactly. But what this is doing is it's asking the people who are putting the advertising up to now have to file forms with the election commission of both the state of Maryland, maybe even with the feds, I'm not sure. But it's limiting the free speech of that individual who wants to pay and run the ads. And that's where the court struck it down.
But don't you think it should? Don't you think they should be able to control what somebody, who does it and who pays? Look at the amount of ads it's bought that you don't even know who's doing it.
Exactly. They're friends of so-and-so, and we're not associated with this campaign. And I see it all the time, and you probably...
Have a better Maryland coalition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Hogan didn't support the bill to begin with.
Well, he let it become law. He did
didn't
not sign it.
Right.
He did not sign the bill.
But one of the First Amendment to our Constitution was the freedom of speech. So if the Russians decided, or the Ukrainians decided to take a $1 million ad buy for Ron Bowers on the Herald Mail website or on Antietam Broadband's website to promote Ron Bowers for county commissioner.
But they can do it on Facebook.
But they can also do it on
But
the
they
website.
do it on Facebook.
But they do. But
so what is this going to do? What would this have done? What would this bill in Maryland have actually done?
The intent was accountability, but it's asking for the wrong people to be accountable. It's asking for the people who are actually publishing the advertising, not the people who are buying the advertising.
Well, shouldn't the people that are selling the advertising be responsible for what it is, who paid for it and what it is?
Well, they are saying, okay, well, there's a check.
And here's the copy. You can just do that? I don't think that's right.
That's called freedom of speech.
That's not freedom. It's not freedom to go out and pull a fire alarm and create a problem. How is it freedom of speech not to know who did it? Freedom of speech is you're talking.
Right.
Writing it and paying for it, that's not freedom of speech.
I find it kind of odd that we're on opposite sides of this when it's, a liberal, one of the liberal organizations went and challenged it.
Oh, I don't care who challenged it.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I don't tag an organization as liberal. You give so many things away in your life and do so much for others. You're a liberal person, okay? But that doesn't make you a bad person. Demonizing the word liberal.
First time I got that out of Ron.
But there's too many people demonize the word liberal for whatever reason.
And the word Democrat and the word Republican.
But back on the discussion, the First Amendment guarantees us the right of freedom of speech.
Of speech.
Okay. The internet didn't exist back then.
Right.
Okay. Huge gray money entering campaigns didn't exist back then. Correct?
Right.
Okay. So are we going to say that the First Amendment isn't qualified to be in today's world?
I don't mind
No. I got to take exception with that.
Okay.
I got to take exception with that because if freedom of speech is that all encompassing, then why on WMAR you pick the public television station? Can't I go in and roll off a series of cuss words?
Well, there's certain words that.
But I have freedom of speech.
But for the betterment of society, you can't use certain language.
But what do you do tonight? When you do this program, at the beginning you have a disclaimer. This is not part of Antietam Broadband or your show or anybody else. But they can go in now in an ad and put anything, say anything they want to, pay for it, and nobody knows.
But my point about that, and you're right, Ron. I will acknowledge that you are right, 100%. The problem is that even if you stop this, you're not going to stop that process, because you can't stop Henry House and 50 other people.
I agree, but at least I know who's doing it.
But-
Okay.
And I'll deal
and what
with
does that,
that.
what does that buy
Maybe
you?
it's-
What does that buy me? It buys me the chance to come back. If I've got the Ukraine, as you say, and Russia buying into this, which I think there's pretty much proof that there is, what does that really do to stop that from happening?
You know, YouTube.
Freedom of speech in this country is for Americans. It isn't for a foreign country. I don't think.
YouTube
That's
at one point used to have a slogan, and they may still, I don't know, about broadcast yourself, right? That was their slogan. Well, the point is, we have platforms today that lets a single voice, whether it's the crazy kid making prank phone calls or reading Facebook posts online or on TV, and I know that because some of my kids watch that sometimes, or whether it's a guy or a woman getting on and saying, President Trump is great or President Trump's a jerk, and this is why. There's no way to restrict all that without restricting your freedom of speech. And regardless, so what we are trying to do here, in my mind, is deal with the organizational side of that. And my point is, if the organizational side goes away, the Democrats and the Republicans will find some backdoor way to get their message
But
out.
could not social media, okay, Facebook, could they not say, listen, unless you are associated with a registered campaign group, okay, whether it be a PAC or whether it be for a candidate, if you're not associated, then you're not going to have this ad buy for or against any individual. Could they not, as a business decision, choose to do that?
They could. They could.
And if they did that, then that would force this gray money that enters into the campaign they're going to have to register as a PAC. They're going to have to, they can't register as a candidate because that's only the candidate can do that, but they would have to file as a PAC, because we had the same thing in our last congressional election. We had money that was entering in from not just the candidate, not just their campaign funds, but there was an awful lot of gray money that entered in on both sides, justifiably, on both sides, that there was little to no accountability for.
Yeah. But here's the other problem. The way this law was crafted, and I think this was part of Governor Hogan's issue with it, there really wasn't a way to collect the data needed to enforce it. I mean, you could, over time, you could build a platform
Now,
to
which
allow you
data
to
are you
collect.
talking about collecting?
Well, the systems, for example, Google, shortly after this law came in, said, we're not going to accept local and state political ads to run on our platform, because they didn't have the systems in
They
place,
didn't want to make the investment to put the systems
in place to provide the information that was required on the back end to
Why?
satisfy the act.
Then why do they want to do the ads?
Google doesn't want to do the ads.
If I've bought countless thousands of dollars of ads,
Right.
and they have to all be approved.
I get
Okay,
it.
but that is as a candidate. If I'm supporting you running for office, Ron,
You can say anything you want.
I can say anything I want.
Is that right?
That's why I'm saying maybe what they need to do is be registered.
Let's get back to my point, is that Google wouldn't accept Henry's a purchased ad from Henry. Now, if Henry wants to get on YouTube or Facebook and burn you an effigy in writing or on video, then that's one thing.
But they also won't accept Ron's ad as a candidate.
Well, that's true.
Okay, and that's where if you're saying, listen, if you're a registered organization and you want to take if you want to take a position on something, then you're going to have to be registered with the state campaign office. Don't put the burden on a private business, whether it be Google, which is massive, or the local cable company, to have to track and be in compliance with federal election laws.
Why not? They're multi-billionaires.
No,
so
they're
why-
not.
Who's not?
You think no, that not all broadcast people are
I'm talking
multi-billionaires.
Google.
Well,
Yeah, but
Google,
we're not just
but
talking
you
about Google. It doesn't.
who else?
It's not
Give me an
just.
example.
There's a certain number of hits or views if you get in a certain period of time that makes you subject to enforcement of the law. And not all, and based on the number of hits, and I don't remember exactly what the number was, 20,000, 50,000, something like that, then you had to comply with the law. And there are many more companies, you know, there are people that go on YouTube and post things that get millions of hits, individuals.
Is that right?
Absolutely there are.
And you can make a YouTube right now, a video,
Right.
and put it on Facebook. And Facebook has the right to take it down.
They do?
They do. I mean, my son had a YouTube video that had over 100,000 hits. All right, and it wasn't political. It was him asking his fiancée to marry, or to be engaged. He got interviewed. It got a whole bunch of hits. He got a little revenue from it. But those are the options there. But if you remove the burden from private, make it, listen, you have to, if you're putting a position down, then it needs to be here. And all ads are subject to review.
It's also a slippery slope, because not always is an ad. If we have a segment on this show that bashes, you name the political candidate, and then we publish that segment separately on YouTube, the show is produced by a business. We are publishing that on YouTube. If we pay to have that segment boosted and get more views and more likes and that kind of thing, is that not a political ad?
Right.
But can you have I guess here we are, we're talking about what's happened. I'm not sure we really know what happened. I'm not sure what they fixed or what they didn't fix or what they even uncovered or what the courts did.
It's nothing now because the court said you can't enforce this law.
The circuit, Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals suggested that they understood what the legislature in Maryland was trying to do. They just think that this particular law is not something they could support.
They didn't see whereas it would be a benefit to
They said it
the
was.
target.
They said they were going about the task in too circuitous and burdensome a manner, I think was the quote.
I'm glad you remembered that word.
Which one?
Circuitous.
There you go.
And burdensome.
Burdensome. All right. Final words, Henry.
You know, I think the courts were right in the decision here, but I also think that there needs to be some way that we can address gray campaign funds, but still have the right and privileges that the First Amendment grants us.
Ron?
I'm kind of agreeing to what Henry's saying. I think there needs to be more teeth to take out the bad guys and gals on both sides from some of the vitriol that comes out of ads. And nobody
And not
seems
just
to
locally
know,
and state.
all over.
Yeah, I would agree.
That it's totally not necessary. But at what time and who's going to have the guts to do it?
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you, and perhaps this is my dim view of the world, but I don't think you're ever going to stop it. Whether you stop it overtly or not, I think it's going to happen in the background regardless.
Overtly or covertly.
Exactly. There are errors of omission and errors of commission. Yep. All right. That's all we're going to talk about on that one. Coming up, cannabis edibles. Maryland suggests that the final rules could be in place shortly. We'll talk about that when we return. Stay with us. The Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission says they could pass final rules for the sale of edibles in the state of Maryland next week. Ron, what say you?
I think it's going to happen. They were concerned about minors and other things to make sure that it all works. The legislature's allowed it to happen. I'm anxious to see how this whole thing really shakes out. Are we going to be in the same place that they are in California and Colorado? Is that going to happen? Is it going to be a major difference than what we have now? I'm watching people drive down the highway drinking a beer, or sitting someplace in public drinking a beer, a can of beer, and throwing it out on the road. See, I have problems with the beer industry and the liquor industry, that they're allowed to do all this, and something like what we're talking about here, edible cannabis, having all this hullabaloo about it, when commercials for a drug that's harming people far worse than what we're talking about can be on any TV at any time.
Henry?
Well, I'll take issue with Ron's one point there. One, it really boils down to the alcohol industry, which you're talking about, beer and liquor. There was 2 amendments to the Constitution to deal with it. One to prohibit it and one to reinstate it in a better controlled fashion. And it has a separate branch of government that helps oversee it.
You say alcohol.
Alcohol. The FDA, they had classifications, and for some reason they felt that marijuana was a more dangerous drug than what alcohol was. Now, I don't drink alcohol, so I just know what the background of the industry is. Regarding cannabis, I don't smoke, I never have, so I can't really tell you what a high would be from there. I'm sorry. But I have concerns about this, but I also appreciate the diligence that they have done in trying to craft legislation that fits within, they've talked to 30 different states that have legalized edibles in some form or fashion. They're controlling the portion size, they're controlling the pack size. If someone who has a need for something larger, more concentrated, there's an appeal method that they can actually do that. The goal of this is to possibly, not have them go to opioids like we have an issue with in this country, but maybe, explore using the THC component of it to help deal with people who have chronic issues.
Are we doing this for medicinal purposes, or are we doing this whole thing for revenue? Tell me what you think. Is this all a revenue stream?
It won't be a revenue stream until they make it generally accepted for anyone to go into the dispensary and pick something up.
But isn't it
right now?
Stream?
I think the key is this is the way that they can generate revenue.
So there will be a point in time where cannabis has a certain alcohol content.
I wouldn't say a certain alcohol content. I would say there's
Your
going to be
mouthwash has an alcohol content.
Okay, well, I don't see them selling, THC strips, but the issue that we had with vaping in this country, that they were inserting THC into the vaping products, and that's what landed some people in the hospital or into the morgue.
I asked when I was on probation one time, I had to go in and take a breathalyzer test, and I said, can I spray a certain spray, which was a mouthwash,
right?
Not a mouthwash, but a mouth spray. Can I spray that? I failed that test just off of a mint spray. I won't tell the product, but I failed it, and we did that on purpose to see what would happen.
And people have failed tests when they've consumed poppy seeds because they weren't processed correctly on top of bagels.
But if you wait for 3 minutes, I think it's 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, poppy seeds be a little bit different, but the breath is a different thing.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay, but getting back on and they're also addressing the appeal and marketing of it. Okay, they're saying it needs to be certain sizes, and it can't appeal to the teenagers or younger ages. Okay, it needs to market it to adults. Don't put cartoon characters on it. Don't So they're trying to go about the right way. I don't know if there is a right way for it because it's still a drug, and it's still a drug that by U.S. federal law is illegal.
That was going to be my next point. Are we at this point assuming, because my understanding there are 30 other states that allow these edible products. So we are, Maryland, among the minority of states in terms of our...
That don't.
Right. But, in the game of rock, paper, scissors, or national, state, and local, national is rock and state is scissors, and rock breaks scissors, right? So how do we get away with this as a state?
Well, California and Colorado, they've been leading the charge against the anarchy of the federal government. So,
and also my question is, you know, we are such a blue state. We're not purple. We are blue. Yes, there's the majority of the state, if you look at it from a geographic standpoint, is red.
Is red.
But the reality is the population centers where the majority of the population is blue, and that's why, you know, this is a plus 10 or plus 12 or whatever it is Democratic state. How is it that we're so late with this? Is it because of the governor, or is it because, why are we so late with this, Ron, in dealing with this?
Maryland was a backward state, I think, until O'Malley really became involved. He pushed a lot of things through. That's why I said last week, I think with the new makeup of the Senate and the House, there's bills that have been more progressive over a period of time is going to face a harder fight.
I think the leadership changes. One with the passing of Senator Miller,
right?
Okay, and the other with the retirement of Bush.
Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House, yeah, Bush. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think the leadership changes because they wielded so much power in Annapolis, and I know one of the leaders had a personal story that impacted, and that's why they were always so opposed.
Well, that was Miller. Miller talked about he voted against it because of his personal story.
But based upon that, are you going to go against Miller if you were down in Annapolis? It wasn't going to get to the floor.
But one of the things that's for sure, it's here. There's going to be something else concocted illegally that will go out and kill people. So why don't we legalize what we have, control it, and get revenue from it?
Ron, do you think the federal government should make it legal?
For what?
For the THC component of marijuana. Do you think they should make that legal?
States' rights.
States' rights. Okay. The state doesn't have an FDA program.
30 states do.
No.
I thought 30 states.
Well, they have legalized it,
right?
But they have legalized it in opposition to what their federal government. So we're talking states' rights issues, but states' rights issues on this.
Do you want to go federal? You want to go federal?
I think if Maryland wants to put it in place, then we should address this on a federal level and make it a national. Still have a states' rights issue, but a state can choose whether to have it or not have it, but it really should be decided on a federal level so states aren't running afoul of the federal government.
But doesn't the states have more of an understanding of what the populace in that
Fantastic.
state
You should bring
wants?
that up, Ron. Should we talk about the abortion rights issue then?
You want to talk about
Okay.
that? Go right
Let's
ahead.
stay-
That's
let's
not.
stay into
Okay.
this. Let's move.
But we're talking states' rights.
We are, but yeah, we are talking states' rights. But here's something interesting. So marijuana at the federal level is classified as what's called a Schedule I drug.
Mm-hmm.
So other drugs, two other drugs that are in that same category are heroin,
Yep.
lysergic acid diethylamide, which is LSD, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, but essentially ecstasy. Now, I don't see those four drugs
Being comparable?
Yeah. Do you, Ron?
No.
And really, with just a little talking, they could reclassify marijuana to a lower schedule. Okay, so it may be prescription based. All right.
Does it have a level? Is it a level?
Is it the same level as tobacco?
Well, is it same
And
as
tobacco, you
alcohol,
just have to be
10%, whatever percent?
But is it, comparable consumption would be cigarettes to marijuana. That's okay. So can we say we want to consider it the same as tobacco? Do we want to consider it the same as, in your case, you want to consider it the same as alcohol? Does there need to be a federal law saying, well, this is the age in which you're going to be allowed to consume it? So, but why haven't we had this national conversation? That's where
And we haven't had it.
We haven't had it
at all.
Okay, states are making these decisions. Get your senators to bring it up down in D.C. and have it for a real debate and discussion,
So
or put the pressure.
What's the Constitution say?
The Constitution does not rule on that.
When the what stops a state from doing something?
Federal law
Constitution.
theoretically trumps state law.
Right. So there you go. So that's when you was going to get into another subject, federal law.
Well,
is
what he was
what
going
guides
to
the story.
get into a debate, and there's no debate about the fact that we're out of time on this segment. So coming up next, Fast Five. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time for Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in hopefully 7 short minutes. Let's start off. Maryland roads. Maryland Reporter has an article out this week that says they're better than most. Henry, what say you?
Well, reading the articles, hooray, we're number 12. Okay.
Well, but the 12 out of 50 is
12 out of 50, all right.
not bad.
Well, it's not great. You're not in the top 10.
Okay.
Okay.
But we're, not in the lower
we're
10
better
either.
than the surrounding states.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're better than the surrounding states.
And
but
who
also
at this table didn't know that?
Okay, but at an expense. Okay, we're spending $1.06 a mile. Versus Virginia, which is the next closest, is spending 62 cents a mile. And if you ever drive through West Virginia, they've made the healthy investment of 32 cents a mile. I couldn't find the Pennsylvania numbers. Okay, but
Well, they don't exist.
yeah, they might
Does
be.
Pennsylvania have a Department of Transportation?
They have a Department of Patch and Refill. Okay,
PennDOT.
but I mean, we're doing it at an expense. But we do have, for the amount of area that Maryland covers in geography, we have an awful lot of roads going through the state that are highly used. I mean,
Absolutely.
so I mean, there is that need for investment. So it's good to know when we hop on 81, I'm not going to have to get my front end realigned every time I go down to the mall.
Yeah. And I will say, and I know that West Virginia is below us on the scale, but from an interstate perspective, I think West Virginia interstates that I've run on have been pretty good for the most part.
I think the main thoroughfares, haven't been in other parts of West Virginia, aren't bad.
But then when you
As soon as you pull off and you start driving,
it
yeah.
gets ugly real quick,
Yeah.
right? Okay, fair point. Here's an interesting one. Washington County approves water sewer
Oh, wait a
plan.
minute. Let's
What?
get back on the roads.
Well, go ahead, Ron. Do you want to say something else?
Yes,
What do
I
you want to
really
say?
do.
Say something.
Because when you go out into the West and you get roads that are so long and not that many people travel on them, there's a big the cost is different. In Maryland, with what we have with Washington and Baltimore and all the surrounding areas of the people coming here using roads, Maryland has dramatically better roads than most states. The way we have to take care of our roads, the amount of traffic that use roads around the beltways and from Washington, Baltimore, here on up into Cecil County, down into southern Maryland and that type of thing, I just want you to understand how much and why we spend as much money per mile as what we do in Maryland and Washington.
Yeah, I think I did step on that point when we were
Yeah.
talking. Okay.
Okay. All right. Washington County approves water sewer plan amendment. Ron, this is a subject that's always close to your heart. What say you?
I don't know what they passed. I looked at it and I don't see anything that they passed. It made a nice little article in the paper. They still haven't dealt with it. They're still sticking their head in the sand, and someday they'll deal with the real issue.
So tell me what the real issue is.
The real issue is that the city of Hagerstown is attempting and has for years to control where water and where the water and sewer goes. And it should be Washington County. There should be a Metropolitan Sewer and Water Authority that deals with water and sewer in the area, and the county should not be under the guidelines of the city, because the city says, well, your plans don't call for you developing here or there. Well, I don't know at what point the Potomac River was turned over to the city of Hagerstown, nor do I understand when the Conicajig wastewater treatment plant was turned over to them either.
Now, Hagerstown made the investment in the water infrastructure, but the county made the investment in the sewer infrastructure.
The city made the investment in a water plant for the city.
Right.
When that extended out into the county and you had zones and you need Horton sphere and different kinds of transmission lines to get it out, the county resident paid for that to extend it. So that facade, and I'll debate any one of the folks that want to come on to talk about, the city's got a perspective and they got a good point. The point, though, is that the county resident paid significantly more for the investment of running a line into
But
their
on
community.
Jim's discussion a little bit earlier, the first bill costs $200 million. The second bill only costs 2 cents. So they made the investment to get the water flowing through the pipes. Then we made a secondary investment. The county made the secondary investment. The county taxpayers made that secondary investment to get the water from the plumbing line that comes into the city out into the county to where they live.
The money that the city used to get that plant up and running came from state and federal. It came from your dollar and my dollar and the city dollar, the Mulligansville dollar, the Smithburg
why does that
dollar.
matter? Because the city still made the investment.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did. They're the ones that got the money.
They started a plant years ago.
Okay.
They're not
Okay.
the one that got into the business of running it into the county. The city of Hagerstown should not be controlling water for all of Washington County. Totally disagree.
But if they have to do an upgrade for the capacity in Washington County beyond their city residents, who does that burden fall upon?
The resident that's going to pay for it is like myself, live in Mulligansville, which my water and sewer bill is far more than a person living in the city.
And
Far more.
they advertise that's a benefit of being a city resident, by the way.
Well, that's fine, but that city resident isn't.
But
it
it-
does not come out of the capital budget of the city to do that.
But really, when we get down into the brass tacks, this was passed. We have no idea
What it is.
what it was. It just said, basically Hagerstown's, development of the water and sewer growth within the county. They've come to some kind of agreement. We have no idea what that agreement is.
And that's what my initial premise was, is the debate's never public.
Well, I understand that. But I would, again, going back to the point of why does the city own this, I can tell you just a couple of years ago, actually just last year, there was a water main break up the street from me.
And who paid for it?
Well, I can tell you who was out there working in the middle of the night
It
fixing
was
it.
their lines.
It was the city.
Right, it was their lines.
Okay,
Their lines run that far.
good.
They have the water. But that is not
So that's
all
why
of the
they own
city
it.
residents. The money is collected from those other people that goes into a maintenance fund that deals with it.
Okay.
There's a capital investment
Somebody's got to own it. Would you agree?
plan. Yes.
Okay. So if the city made the investment, why would they be interested in transferring ownership of it to the county?
I didn't say to transfer
What did
ownership
you
to
say?
the county.
You said
I said
there should
an
be
authority.
a water authority.
I said an authority.
Okay, so let
Since
me
it
rephrase
includes
the
a
question.
whole lot of people, it should
What
be
would
an
their
authority.
interest be in transferring ownership to a water authority?
There is none. That's why they haven't done it.
There you go.
Okay, and when we write out our check on a quarterly basis, who do we write that check out to?
City of Hagerstown,
Well,
it
you
goes to
write
the
one.
county.
You write two of them. You write one to the city and one to the
No,
county.
you don't.
I don't.
You run. It goes
I
to
live
the
in
city.
county, but I have it all going. I'm
It goes
serviced by
to
the city.
Oh, okay, I write two. I don't know why I do
Yeah.
that.
So,
neither
'cause
do
you
we.
live in Williamsport, probably.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This is a major debate that's a whole program.
You've heard the kid story, if you give a mouse a cookie, well, what if you give a homeless person a bathroom in the city of Hagerstown? There's a debate going on.
A debate?
Well, it's not really a debate, is it? There's a
People have to use
There's a
restrooms.
suggestion.
there's a suggestion.
What's a good idea?
Okay, that's what I'm asking. I'm not.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I wasn't trying to be rude about it.
No,
I'm just
I know.
asking the question.
I'm just giving you the answer.
So, Ron, you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
would deal
Tell
with
me why.
AT&T. Well, because people have a right, not a right, but they have a need to use restrooms. They have a need to use different things. When I was a kid and we came to Hagerstown, we would go to the bottom of City Hall to go to the bathroom. That was a public restroom back then. If you walk down, where your car goes under City Hall, there were two restrooms there underneath of City Hall. And those two restrooms were open for people that came to town that had no other place to go. You need to have something, and I think the council is right on target and wanting to do something for restroom facilities in the city.
Henry?
We discussed off camera, if you lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Just because we make restrooms available, for us being downtown, we may not want to run and bother a business. We may go into the public facilities. My concern is how are we going to maintain it? What's the condition of it going to be as people, because it's going to be open 24/7. Is it going to become a a place for someone to get in out of the weather instead of going to a shelter? Are they going to actually use the facilities? I mean, what spurred all this was the downtown parking deck. Some person decided to relieve themselves. I presume it wasn't with urine, but
it was number two.
It was a number two in the city parking deck.
But that's going to happen.
It's going
till the end of time.
whether we have it or we don't. But how are we going to monitor? How are we going to maintain safety? Is it going to become another problem that we have to deal with down the road?
Is it?
It's all part of life. It's all part of a community. We're not the first community that's had the issue. Other people's deal with it. Other communities have dealt with it. There's no reason we can't deal with it. You have public restrooms. What do you do if you get down and walk around the Inner Harbor?
I hold it.
Is there places? There's public restrooms.
Yes, but I still hold it.
Yeah. So there is ways to do it, and I think there's ways here to do it.
So the consensus is, are you in favor of this?
I think the looking from it I think it's a good idea, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be discussed regarding our public safety aspect of it if we're going to put it into place. Okay.
All right. Barr blasts FBI over Trump investigation. Henry, let's start with you.
This isn't our former county commissioner. This is actually the...
Bill Barr.
Okay, Bill Barr. Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
I just wish all this would go away. I think we have pounded on that drum so long that regardless of what political side you are affiliated with, we just want it to go away and let's focus on governing this country.
Okay.
I have no comment on it.
Okay. All right. Netflix could lose 4 million subscribers in 2020, according to a research analyst. Ron, are you a Netflix subscriber?
I am.
Do you like it?
Absolutely. Do I want to see? Ads on it? Do I want to see a commercial? I have that on YouTube. If I wanted to watch something on YouTube, which I watch YouTube a lot, you can go and pull out a lot of things. I know that before it starts, there's going to be an ad come on. And you know what? I don't mind that because I've got available to watch something.
And if it's a longer video, you're going to have another ad on or whatever. And it's part... I liked it when YouTube was less commercialized, but they have to make a revenue for it.
Sure.
I used to be a Netflix subscriber. I dropped them.
Why is that?
I dropped them about the same time they decided that they were going to affiliate with Barack Obama and make an investment and give him money for a show that I've never seen produced. It was my political statement on that. But the cost of it, I didn't see the return on investment. The other services that I have, I can watch movies on. I have Amazon Prime. That helps me with my shipping. So I can watch movies there. Sometimes different movies and series than what Netflix has, but that's fine. I already have a streaming service is what I'm saying.
All right. I'm a Netflix guy. I'm an Amazon Prime guy too, but I like Netflix.
Yeah, so I like it, and I
don't want to.
I'm not going to let what some political party has done deter me from it. I'm sorry to hear you say that. I really.
I mean, I already had another stream. It was redundant. Why put the money out? And plus, the reason why they're going to lose it is because, and we really didn't touch on it, is that their prices are higher than other streaming companies that are entering the market, and because they have so much focus being U.S. based. And not have ad revenue to help offset it, they don't think it's going to be.
But you know what happens to those companies that start up and that charge less?
They go up, just like
they go up.
Just like
they go away.
There's another There's another streaming service that I saw. They're going up come the first of the year.
Yep, I'll stick with my Netflix. And while it's all going, those new people that's coming on, they'll get these people captured, and all at once the price will go up, things will change. Or they'll go out of business.
Well, Disney, I don't think is going to go out of business.
All right, that's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We hope you will send us your feedback and suggestions to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That's feedback@theflipsidetv.com. Most importantly, join us here again next week for another visit to the Flip Side. Good night.